Hello everybody, my name is Jared Pinder, and welcome to Prospects Providence. This is my first video I am making for this new channel, and I'm going to be dedicating it to the minor league prospects currently in Major League Baseball farm systems, and of course to the MLB draft. Now, since the 2021 MLB draft is coming up, I wanted to dedicate my first couple of videos to the prospects that are going to be in this next upcoming draft. And when we think about these usual drafts, it's usually nice to talk about who is the number one overall consensus pick. However, there is a bit of a challenge with this draft in order to do that. Mainly because in some drafts, sometimes you do get an Adley Rutschman, a guy who's seemingly so talented that he really hasn't done anything to show you why he shouldn't be the consensus number one overall pick. In some drafts, you get Spencer Torkelson, a prospect that was well liked, well regarded, that just had such a good year that he couldn't really do anything else to really take him out of that number one overall pick. But in this year's draft, it's a little bit different. There hasn't really been a prospect in this year's draft to really elevate themselves to that level of Torkelson or Adley, mainly because, in my opinion, I don't think it exists. I really don't think there is a prospect in this draft that really can compare to Adley or Spencer Torkelson. But that doesn't mean this draft has talent. As we'll quickly find out, this draft has a lot of talent. It's just about depth and whether or not the talent is available at the top. But there has been one name that has gotten a decent amount of buzz ever since the season really started to get into full swing, and that would be the catcher out of Louisville, Henry Davis. When we think about Henry Davis and his overall profile, it's really no surprise why scouts consider him so highly. The fact that he has been getting number one overall pick discussions. He does a lot of things very well, but in my humblest opinion, I really don't think that Henry Davis is the number one consensus overall prospect in this draft. As we'll get into in this video, I think Henry Davis has some flaws that right now are sort of being covered up by the overall publications and by the baseball media. So today, we dive deep into Henry Davis and we truly figure out what he does very well, what he does very bad, and at the end, we're going to get a consensus opinion of Henry Davis. But to start this off, let's go into the things that he does very well. You know, there are a lot of things to like with Henry Davis. When you look at his baseline stats, they are very impressive and a lot of things stand out. Davis for Louisville this year batted .370, .482, and .663. That is without a doubt one of the best batting lines of any college baseball player, and he has been the breakout candidate for any college baseball player this year. In my honest opinion, no player has improved their draft stock better than Henry Davis. Davis has shown all the potential tools of being a very productive player in the MLB, and it really does start with his elite discipline. Henry Davis's approach and vision to play is simply unmatched in his class. In fact, I can't really find any real comparisons for it in this class. The last time I saw a catcher with this much approach and this good of a walk rate, I actually had to go back to Adley Rutschman. In fact, when you look at the baseline stats and you compare their advanced metrics in terms of offense, Adley Rutschman and Henry Davis are very comparable players. They both had breakout junior year campaigns to their colleges that put them in the conversation for being the potential number one pick in their class. Now, while this is definitely a good thing for Davis, as we go on, we will see that the simulators between him and Rutschman will end. But in terms of just getting on base, Davis got on base at a ridiculous on base percentage of .482. That is simply insane. If a player, by many metrics, if a player gets on base, has on base of 400, it's considered to be elite. But yet, here's Henry Davis rocking his .482 on base percentage. Absolute elite ability to get on base. And a lot of this does come from his come from his ability to draw walks. Davis has walked more than he struck out in his junior year. Again, another comparison to Rushman. Davis's 31 walks, and only the fact that he only strikes out 24 times this year is just so impressive. It really does show off his elite approach. He has an elite approach of not only seeing the baseball out of the pitcher's hand, but also has an elite approach at the plate. Davis is not afraid to take a walk, and this is an approach that will play in the major leagues, especially as more teams have become so analytically driven. Walks and on-base percentage have become much more valuable. And when you look at Henry Davis through these metrics, there is no reason why there is really not a real question why I think his draft stock has ballooned this much. This is something so much more valuable in baseball in the modern era, obviously. But the second thing he does very well is hit for a lot of power. Now, Davis has always been a guy who's always flashed elite exit velocities during his BP at the University of Louisville. But now this year he's really transformed a lot of those raw exit velos that he's shown into more game time power. He's hit the most college home runs of his career with 15. He's also rocking an elite slugging percentage at .663. When Davis gets a ball that he can really hit, he absolutely matches it. Davis's exit velocities were off the charts. Oftentimes, his exit velocities were over 105 miles per hour, which is again just insane. When Davis hunts pitches, he can be an absolutely insane hitter. And when you match these two things up, it's no wonder why scouts loved Henry Davis so much. And it really is more of a shock the fact that Henry Davis isn't more talked about as a potential number 1 overall pick. But as we go on, you will see my main concerns with Henry Davis. Davis has a lot of power in his swing. He's incredibly strong, and when you mix this with his elite on-base ability and his approach, it's just insane how the ceiling of Henry Davis is just sky high. But he does do another thing very well, and it's actually going to be on the defensive side this time, and that's his elite pop time and his elite arm. Davis has an insanely strong arm. In fact, you can often say that he has a bazooka behind the plate. I don't take this lightly either here, folks. Now, some people use that term as kind of throw that term around, not really knowing what it means. But I legit think that Davis's arm can be listed as a weapon if it's used correctly. Davis's arm is so powerful. He generates so much power from that arm. The fact that oftentimes you will see him do the classic Yadier Molina, where he gets down on one leg and throws out the runner. While it's definitely impressive to see, when he does get into a proper position to throw out the runner, it is very pretty. He has a very pretty approach behind the plate, and when you do see the arm absolutely be unleashed, it is a sight to behold. He was averaging insane pop times around 2.0, around 2 seconds. This makes him a very intriguing case to stick at catcher, obviously. Davis is insane. So in conclusion, Davis is insane at what he does. An elite approach, an insane power potential with the raw exit velos to back it up, and the slugging and the home runs with that. With his elite vision and his amazing arm. At this point, there hasn't been a lot of things to dislike about Davis. And really, it should be no surprise why scouts and why a lot of publications have been pegging him to be the number 1 overall talent in this class. But when we dive deeper into what he does as a full package, you will see why I have a little bit of concern with Henry Davis. This will be discussed in the next section. With all this being said about what Davis does very well, I do have two main big concerns with Henry Davis that unfortunately kind of keep him from being the top consensus prospect in this draft. Number one, the first big concern to me is Davis does some swings, does some weird things with his swing that do make me wonder if it will translate to more elite competition. So what I mean by that is that Davis is very crouched at the plate, and his hands are way back towards his head. Now while this hasn't exactly held back some hitters, as Buster Posey has a very similar batting stance, and other hitters like Josh Donaldson have also used very similar batting stances in the past. What makes me a little bit weird is that Davis also has a very long leg kick. And when you mix these two things together, I wonder if he can get to his power consistently as he faces more elite competition. Like it or not, Davis will not always be facing ACC pitching for the rest of his career. If he does get drafted top 5, which I am sure at this point he probably will, he will see a lot better pitching as he develops. And I'm worried, and what I'm really concerned is that I don't know if his swing can truly translate into hitting elite competition. I can easily see high fastballs and inside pitches really giving him trouble because of the kind of unique way he sets up. Now, Davis does have to have the elite approach, and he's not always swinging for the fences, yes, but I'm not sure about the in-game power. While the exit velocity and the slugging percentages are nice, I'm not really too sure about the true in-game power. And while he has averaged over 122 bases this year, the in-game power sort of does worry me a little bit. While I think raw power, I would definitely rate him as a 65-70. In-game power, I would probably drop it down to more like a 50-55 range. Now, obviously, no one is perfect all the time, and with this swing, I kind of see him having to be perfect nearly all the time, and that kind of concerns me with players who have swings like that. His unusual setup at the plate is kind of concerning for me because I can definitely see him kind of getting overpowered with pitches as he moves up through the minors. And really the next thing to me, and this is the main thing that really holds him back to me, is that his catching skills are very raw. Now what I mean by that is that behind the plate, he needs a lot of work. He needs a lot of work and development to become a more pure raw receiver. Oftentimes I see him set up at the plate. Oftentimes when I see Henry Davis behind the dish, I see him kind of I kind of see him not receive a ball very smoothly, and it's almost very jagged the way he kind of shakes his arm as he catches the ball. It almost seems like he doesn't really have the timing of catching a pitch and framing it down correctly. So he's like overcompensating for the frame, and when you do that, you kind of get like he's kind of a weird receiver. He's not the best receiver in the world, and honestly, blocking at times was kind of hard to see him block pitches in the dirt at times. I saw a decent amount of times when he could have gotten a really bad pass ball, but then he made up for it with the elite throwing arm. And while the elite throwing arm is nice, he can't always do that in the majors. He needs to learn that. He needs to learn how to block pitches better. He needs to learn how to keep balls in front of him when he blocks pitches. And what's an interesting thing about this is that I've seen him do it beforehand. Like, there was a play during the College World Series where Henry Davis got a ball that was basically bounced in the dirt. He blocked it perfectly, came up with the throw, and fired an absolute cannon to get the runner out again at second against Vanderbilt. That's the type of defender, I think, with his athleticism and his arm, that he can be, but he's just not that defender consistently behind the plate. I do see consistency issues with him. Now, any catching coach can probably get this out of him, but I'm not too sure but I'm honestly not too sure about that. There are some things that he does that are going to require a lot of coaching, and any team that selects Davis has to know that he's not a full product as a receiver yet. He does sometimes miss a block or two. He does sometimes he does sometimes allow a pass ball. He does sometimes do some things that oftentimes he's not very fluid behind the plate with his receiving and getting with his receiving, which is very weird because he has an insane pop time. But when the ball is actually coming to his glove, his receiving skills are a bit weird and very janky, and not very. It almost feels like it's very robotic. It's not very fluid. And obviously, we're gonna have to see if he can do this as a full-time catcher, because obviously it is something that he will have to adapt to. So in conclusion, I think Henry Davis is a very good prospect. That what he does well, he is absolutely elite at. But what he doesn't do very well, I think he needs a lot of improvement in. In terms of where he fits in this draft, I definitely see him going in the top 5. Despite his issues, I don't think there's any way he falls out of the top 5. In fact, I can make an argument that I don't see him falling out of the top 3, with the Detroit Tigers really taking a hard look at Henry Davis. Henry Davis is a top 5 talent with an elite eye, a very amazing approach, with elite raw power that can sometimes translate into on the field success, an insane pop time with an insane arm that is very raw behind the plate, that needs to learn how to play catcher a little bit more, and with also a swing that might not be able to get to his full power potential, and a swing change might be coming. So with all that being said, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, share this video on Twitter or YouTube, whichever one. I really don't care. And I'm just so happy to be back making videos again. And I really hope that Prospect Providence can really take off. Anyway, thank you guys for coming over and watching this video, and I will see you next time.